Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the latest headlines. Suicide bomb attack near Wagah border in Pakistan kills at least 55, 11 women and 3 security personnel, over 200 injured. Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis allots portfolios to his ministers, says alliance talks with Shiv Sena still on track, but alliance will be on BJP's terms. Pro-Russian rebels vote for leaders in eastern Ukraine. President Petro Poroshenko calls it a farce. Russia says it will recognize the result. India ride high on centuries from openers Rahane and Dhawan, beat Sri Lanka by 169 runs in the first of 5 ODIs in Qatar. Well, our top focus on the bulletin this morning: at least 55 people, including children and security personnel, were killed and about 200 others injured in a powerful suicide blast in Pakistan at the Wagah border on Sunday. A large number of people were returning after watching the Rangers' flag ceremony at the Wagah border when a suicide bomber blew himself up near one of the exit gates. 3 Pakistan Rangers were also among the dead. The Al-Qaeda-affiliated group Jundala has claimed responsibility for the dastardly attack. Pakistani Rangers have cordoned off the blast site. BSF has also alerted positions along the border. Prime Minister Narendra Modi condemned the terror attack and offered his condolences to the families of the deceased. Congress President Sonia Gandhi also expressed shock and dismay over the attack.
जब सेरेमनी ख़त्म हुई तो उसके बाद एक अपेरेंटली दहशतगर्दी का वाक़या हुआ है, जिसके नतीजे में अभी तक 48 लोगों की डेथ जो है वो कंफर्म हो चुकी है और मज़ीद जो लोग हैं वो अस्पतालों में इस वक्त उनका इलाज हो रहा है और कुछ लोग अभी क्रिटिकल हैं, तो इसलिए ये फिगर अभी फाइनल नहीं है, मज़ीद तादाद बढ़ भी सकती है। तमाम अस्पतालों में इमरजेंसी का नफाज कर दिया गया है, तमाम पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ जो है वो अस्पतालों में मौजूद है।
We must understand that Pakistan is at the moment probably reaping the same fruit what they sowed. You see, they gave birth to this sort of system to carry out in India the terrorist activities. Now they are suffering the same, the malady, they're suffering what they gave birth to.
Well, joining me for a chat on the program this morning is Parsa Venkateshwar Rao Jr., editorial consultant of the DNA. Very good morning, Parsa, and thank you for joining me on the program. Well, sorry. No, that's okay. Let's talk about what happened late last evening at the Wagah border. Thankfully, it did not happen on our side of the border. It happened on the Pakistani side of the border, but still something to be extremely concerned about, something to be worried about.
Yes, I think it's much too close to the Indian border. And secondly, to have such an incident to have happened near the border is something to worry about. I think we should all sit up and take note of it because unfortunately, there is endemic sectarian violence, terror violence inside Pakistan for the last 6 to 7 years. But it was always on near Sindh, Baluchistan and the North Waziristan and yes, that side. And sometimes in the Pakhtunkhwa, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, that is the former Northwest Frontier Province. But this is the first time it's happening so close to the Indian border and this side of the Pakistan, Punjab. So we still do not know the, I think, full details of it, what is the network, because it just doesn't make sense as to why it should have happened at this particular point.
You know, a little-known group called Jundala has claimed responsibility for the attack. It's supposed to be an affiliate of the Al-Qaeda. Is the Al-Qaeda now trying to be a force to reckon with after being out of contention for a little while now?
I'm not too sure about this, the Al-Qaeda thing. You know, everywhere, wherever there is some problem, because this is a very shadowy organization. We really do not have a fix about where its leadership is, what its terror network is. But we do know that the Pakistan Taliban, that network has become weakened. And perhaps this is some splinter group which is trying to assert itself inside Pakistan. So we have to keep a very close watch, because this reminds me that the Burdwan incident, you know, where some of the terror elements were operating from inside India against Bangladesh. It might be the case that these people, the terror networks, might want to infiltrate somewhere this side and operate against Pakistan. And that is something we have to be very, very concerned about.
Is it something that India needs to take stock of, India needs to look at with immediate effect? Of course, the BSF has been put on heightened alert and, you know, everyone's ensuring that there is watertight security along the border. But is there an underlying message for India to take away from this?
The message is this, that the terrorists may, you know, all day long we have been attacked from the Pakistan side, either through infiltration or through other means. But now this is a different kind of a security threat where some of these terror elements might want to create the impression that they are operating from inside India or along the border of India and attacking the Pak base or the Pak security forces. That becomes a matter of concern. I think the alert is very, very essential to be, make very sure that none of these terror elements are infiltrating into India and operating from the Indian base.
Indeed. We've seen in the recent past, you know, Pakistan increasing its shelling on Indian posts in the region of Jammu and Kashmir. This usually happens at this time of the year because it's the last time for them to infiltrate into India and send people into India from
before the winter sets in.
Before the winter sets in and, you know, before it starts snowing. So could this also be linked to that? Could this also be linked to something, you know, where they're trying to divert the attention of the Indian forces, maybe to try and infiltrate further or try and create some kind of fear psychosis in the Punjab region as well?
I wouldn't put it beyond the ISI and other elements to create a fear psychosis on the other side, even at the cost of killing their own people. I mean, some of these security agencies can be very, very criminal in their intent. So what we have to be very careful is, it is Pakistan's business as to how it deals with its own terror network, you know. What we have to see to it is that none of these terror networks or terror groups ever come into India and operate from the Indian side, because the border is quite a porous border and we have to be very careful.
Could it also be an act of frustration because India has retaliated with a strong arm as far as Pakistan's infiltration bids and Pakistan's shelling is concerned in the recent past? So could it be an attack out of sheer frustration?
We really do not know what is the real linkage between these terror groups and the Pakistan security establishment. Sometimes they seem to be working against each other, as we have seen in the Waziristan area or the Balochistan area, where the security forces are attacking the jihadi elements. It may be the case, but we should not assume as of now, because we lack the information, that the jihadi group and the Pakistani security forces are working hand in glove. They can be assumed to be working hand in glove when it concerns India, when they attack India or something like that. But here is something that is happening to the Pakistani people, that Pakistani civilians are killed, children are killed, women are killed. So it would be very, very cynical and diabolical on the part of the Pakistan security establishment if it were to allow its own people to be killed, just to create some sort of a image against India.
All right. We'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much, Parsa Venkateshwar Rao, for joining us on the program and sharing your views on this very sad subject. Moving on now, after a week of debate on the black money case, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has broken his silence on the matter. He said efforts to bring untaxed money back in India is on the right track and promised to remain committed to the job. However, the government and the SIT still remain unsure of the amount.
मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, करीब एक महीने के बाद मैं फिर से आज आपके बीच आया हूं.
In his second radio address to the nation on Sunday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi vowed to bring back black money. He said his government's efforts to do so is on right track, despite criticisms and questions from different quarters in the past 7 days. However, both the government and the Supreme Court appointed SIT remain clueless about the exact amount still.
जहां तक काले धन का सवाल है, ब्लैक मनी का सवाल है, मेरे देशवासी, आपके इस प्रधान सेवक पे आप भरोसा कीजिए. मेरे लिए ये आर्टिकल ऑफ फेथ है. भारत के गरीब का पैसा जो बाहर गया है, वो पाई पाई वापस आनी चाहिए. ये मेरा कमिटमेंट है.
देश के लिए तो वापस मनी लाना अच्छा तो है, पर कितना आता है वो तो कोई जानता नहीं अभी। कितना फॉरेन में है, अभी कितना है वो भी कोई जानता नहीं है। वो सब रूमर्स चलती है, ये रूमर्स कितनी सच्ची है वो तो देखना पड़ेगा।
But the political circle is abuzz over the poor promise made by the PM to bring back untaxed money. The opposition parties say the nation is growing impatient after he failed to live up to it.
काला धन के संदर्भ में प्रधानमंत्री जी का आज का जो बयान है वो चुनाव प्रचार के दरमियान जो उनका बयान था उससे बिल्कुल अलग है। चुनाव प्रचार के दरमियान उन्होंने वोट मांगते हुए लोगों से अपील की थी कि हमारे देश के लोगों का अवैध पैसा विदेशी बैंकों में इतना है कि वो सब लाया जाएगा और सबको 3-3 लाख रुपए मिलेगा। आज प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं उनकी सरकार को पता नहीं कितना ब्लैक मनी है।
प्रधानमंत्री बनने से पहले तो बता दिया कितना है, तो यहीं पर जो है शंकाएं और सवाल जो है उठते हैं।
This government is committed in seeing to it that no stone is left unturned to bring back the black money.
In an effort to crack down on such untaxed funds, the SIT is set to open a channel of communication through which anyone can share definitive information. The step is aimed at detecting and prosecuting all direct or indirect instances of illegal generation of funds and evasion of government taxes. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Moving on now, the first BJP government in Maharashtra faces the floor test on November 12th. Despite claims of support from independents and smaller parties, the BJP will have to depend on the NCP to pass the test on its own strength. The BJP will need the Shiv Sena back on board to sail through it, but the two former allies have not struck a deal yet.
After the grand celebrations of forming the first government in Maharashtra, BJP is back to drawing board. The governor has asked it to prove majority during a 3-day assembly session starting on November 10th. The party's strength is down to 121 after death of an MLA, but claims it has support of 13 more from smaller parties or independents. The party still needs NCP to stay true to its promise of outside support to survive the crucial floor test. Otherwise, the party will fall short by at least 10 seats of majority. BJP can breathe easy if talks to bring Shiv Sena back in fold succeed. The party has 63 members to ensure BJP doesn't have to worry about proving majority. In an interview to NDTV, Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis said he is confident of a reunion of two parties with the talks on track. But Shiv Sena has also asked the BJP to announce the party's entry into the government before the trust vote. According to party sources, Sena now wants an equitable share in the government, including the post of Deputy Chief Minister. Fadnavis has already allocated key portfolios to his 10-member Council of Ministers. It remains to be seen if the two sides reach an understanding before the next weekend. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but we'll be back with much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Let's now get you a roundup of all the news-making stories from across the country in our segment Nationwide. Police booked 500 people and arrested 10 a day after the clashes between police and farmers. Over 18 persons were injured in the clashes. Meanwhile, the BJP has demanded unconditional release of the 10 farmers and activists, saying that it has chalked out a plan for agitation in support of the farmers' demand of compensation for their land, which has been submerged in the water of Gokul Barrage. FIRs have been registered against top officials of the Aviation Ministry, GVK Limited and Police Department on a complaint that Mumbai International Airport Limited received undue benefit to the tune of hundreds of crores of rupees from the government. The basis of the FIRs is a report of the Comptroller and Auditor General on the Mumbai Airport Modernization Project. Union Surface Transport and Shipping Minister Nitin Gadkari would undertake an aerial inspection of the controversial Setu Samudram shipping channel route on November 4th. He would inspect the entire Park Strait on board a Coast Guard aircraft and discuss about the work so far completed on the multi-crore project. Moving on, now Andhra Pradesh is building its capital around the centrally located Vijayawada and Guntur region. The state government is proposing a land pooling mechanism to acquire land from the farmers, the idea being to encourage people to benefit from the development of a capital city. The task ahead is huge. Here's our special report.
Early this year, Vijayawada was the nerve center of the fight to keep Andhra Pradesh united. It may have lost its battle after a separate Telangana was formed, but it's now won the distinction of becoming the new capital of the residual state. In doing so, the state cabinet seemingly overruled arguments of the 2014 Sivakrishnan committee that said highland costs could be a bottleneck in acquisitions. The government has demarcated 17 villages in the Guntur district, located in the 30-kilometer periphery of Vijayawada. The new capital will be built in 5 years on 6 sectors of 5,000 acres each. The region will also depend on the advantage of having a 6-lane national highway on one side and the Guntur-Vijayawada rail line on the other.
We used to wonder why Vijayawada is not given such a prominence even from our childhood days, because it happens to be not happen to be a district headquarters. Because entire India is connected by rail, as well as we have got plenty of water facility over here.
After Hyderabad and Visakhapatnam, Vijayawada in coastal Krishna district is Andhra Pradesh's third largest city. It is relatively prosperous and the place of origin for many thousands of NRIs. As an educational hub, it has many professional colleges, besides a flourishing automobile accessories industry.
So if we can develop Vijayawada as an IT hub or anything, or manufacturing units, if we increase industries and like that, we can retain them in Vijayawada, because most of them after completing their studies, they are migrating to other states or areas and all. If we can retain them, we can have much value creation to Vijayawada as well as to the state.
The challenges ahead for the new capital will of course be the creation of assets to rival the likes of Hyderabad.
Any infrastructure available here, we have to start from right from scratch, and the necessary buildings for the administration and the assembly is to be newly built here in Vijayawada.
Right now, however, the real estate industry in the city is in a delirious spin. Land costs are touching 2 lakh per square yard. Tourism and the hotel industries are queuing up to exploit the business opportunity.
Going to be a capital, this year also will increase, and hotel industry will give a big boom to the...
In 10 years, the capital city of Hyderabad will go over completely to Telangana. But by then, the people of Andhra Pradesh would be hoping they have a worthy enough replacement. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's shift focus now to some international news. Voters in rebel-held eastern Ukraine turned out at the polls on Sunday to elect members of parliament and prime ministers in the pro-Russian separatist provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk in a vote criticized by Kiev and the West. Against a backdrop of violence and bloodshed, the vote played out despite a truce on paper between pro-Russian separatist groups and Ukrainian government forces. Moscow has said that it will recognize the results, while the central Ukraine government in Kiev, the United States and European Union have condemned the elections, calling them illegitimate and a violation of the Minsk agreement.
Barely a few days after Ukraine voted to grow closer to the West, separatists in the East holding controversial presidential and parliamentary elections. Elections that only Russia is backing.
Наладить экономику, мы сможем вернуть все, что утратили, наладить производство, построить государство.
The elections are aimed at legitimizing the military regimes that control Donetsk and Luhansk. But Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko says they go against a 5th of September truce deal signed by the separatists. EU and NATO also denounced the polls. And despite a 4-way phone call on Friday from leaders in Ukraine, Germany and France, Russian President Vladimir Putin is not withdrawing Moscow's endorsement. Separatists, however, admit that they will have to talk to Kiev at some stage.
Конечно, они будут. Понятное дело, что нам придется с ним разговаривать, с Киевом. Но в ближайшее время мы это не планировали. Сегодня пройдут выборы и посмотрим реакцию Киева.
In fresh fighting on the eve of the vote, 7 Ukrainian fighters were killed. There was intense shelling at the ruins of Donetsk airport, a key battleground between the rebels and government forces. The elections threaten to deepen the international crisis over the conflict. Moscow's backing for the vote has sparked a new round of criticism from the West, which says punishing sanctions against the Russian economy will not be lifted. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In more international news now, Islamic State extremists lined up and shot dead at least 50 tribesmen, women and children in Iraq's Anbar province on Sunday. This is the latest mass killing committed by the group. The attack against an Anbar Sunni tribe took place in the village of Ras al-Ma, north of Ramadi. The victims, who reportedly included 10 women and children, were lined up and publicly shot as punishment for what IS sees as the tribe's resistance. Another 17 people were kidnapped by the militant group. A number of people from the Albu Nimr tribe were also found dead in mass graves earlier this week. 50 others were killed on Saturday. Here's a look now at some of the other news from across the world in our World Wrap. Burkina Faso's military has said that it will install a transitional government days after it seized power as President Blaise Compaoré resigned. The move came after soldiers had fired shots at the state TV station and barricaded the capital's main square as thousands of protesters demanded the military give up power. At least one demonstrator was killed in Sunday's clashes. The UN has also condemned the military takeover and threatened sanctions. A special tribunal in Bangladesh has handed down the death sentence to a senior leader of the country's largest Islamist party for war crimes more than 40 years ago. The War Crimes Court in Dhaka found Mir Qasim Ali guilty on Sunday for crimes committed during the nation's independence war against Pakistan in 1971 when he was commander of the Al-Badr militia forces. The 62-year-old media tycoon is thought to be one of the top financiers of the Jabhat-e-Islami party. At least 4 people were killed and 19 others wounded in 2 bomb attacks in the Iraqi capital city of Baghdad on Sunday. A car parked in southwestern Baghdad exploded in the afternoon, leaving 2 people killed and 10 others wounded. Iraq has been witnessing some of the worst violence in years. Terrorism and violence have killed 5,576 civilians in Iraq in the first half of this year, with 11,670 more wounded, according to a recent UN report. Well, let's now take a look at what's lined up for the day in our segment Day Ahead. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj is in Mauritius on a 3-day visit. On the second day of her visit, she is slated to meet Prime Minister Navichandra Ramgoolam, who was the only non-South Asian head of government to be invited to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's oath-taking ceremony on May 26. Sushma Swaraj will also hold talks with her counterpart Arvind Golel, who is also the Minister for Foreign Trade. The Finance Ministry will start its budgetary exercise from today. The Expenditure Secretary is meeting various ministries, starting with Law and Justice and Information and Broadcasting. The ministry will finalize revised estimates for 2014-15 and budget estimates for 2015-16 for planned and non-planned expenses. President Pranab Mukherjee will be the chief guest at the Association Summit on Livelihood Security of India, realizing the vision for 1.3 billion Indians. The function will start at 11:30 a.m. at the Vigyan Bhavan, New Delhi. Home Minister Rajnath Singh will lead a delegation of senior IPS officers to Monaco for the Interpol conference. He will be accompanied by the CBI Director Ranjit Sinha, Delhi Police Commissioner B.S. Basi. The 10-day long Interpol's 83rd General Assembly starts from today. Minister of State for Environment, Forests and Climate Change Prakash Javadekar will inaugurate the conference of the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums. The function will start at 8:30 a.m. in New Delhi. Moving on to some sports news now. India defeated Sri Lanka by 169 runs in the first of the 5 one-day internationals at the Barabati Stadium in Cuttack on Sunday. After being put into bat, India had posted a mammoth total of 363 for 5 in their 50 overs, with openers Ajinkya Rahane and Shikhar Dhawan scoring centuries. Choosing to field quickly became a nightmarish decision for Sri Lanka as Rahane and Dhawan refused to leave the pitch before scoring 111 and 113 respectively, with the knocks comprising 27 boundaries and 5 sixes collectively. Suresh Raina contributed to a half-century, while several cameos by the following batsmen helped India amass 363 runs. Sri Lanka were unable to mount a threatening chase, with none of the players managing to reach a half-century and Mahela Jayawardene top scoring with 43. The visitors were sent packing on 194 runs, with Ishant Sharma picking up 4 wickets. Time now for all the other news-making stories from across the sporting world in our Sports Beat. Novak Djokovic boosted his chances of staying world number one until the end of the season when he became the first player to retain the Paris Masters title with a 6-2, 6-3 win over big serving Canadian Milos Raonic on Sunday. The top-seeded Serb, who did not drop a set in clinching his third Paris title perfectly, read the 7th-seeded Raonic's serve to prevail in a one-sided encounter. Lewis Hamilton took a big step towards a second Formula One World Championship on Sunday with his 10th win of the season in a US Grand Prix that saw Mercedes equal the record for 1-2 finishes. The Briton stretched his lead over teammate Nico Rosberg to 24 points with 2 races and 75 points remaining, a gap that guarantees the title chase will go down to the final round in Abu Dhabi. A stunning goal from Nicolas Anelka helped Mumbai City FC pip Kerala Blasters 1-0 in their Indian Super League match at the D.Y. Patil Stadium on Sunday. The first half was an evenly contested affair with both sides creating opportunities but couldn't quite show the composure to capitalize on the chances created. Anelka's goal helped Mumbai move up from the bottom spot in the points table to 5th with 6 points from 5 matches just above Kerala, who have 4 from 5 games. Well, before we leave you as far as this bulletin is concerned, let's leave you with images from the World Puppet Carnival in Thailand. Enjoy. Have a nice day.